Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to pull out the really key stuff from, well, usually a whole stack of sources, so you, our listener, can get up to speed fast.
That's the plan.
And today, we're looking into something that might genuinely change how you see your own day-to-day. It starts with this pretty amazing story. Picture Lisa Allen, 74 years old, smoker, struggling with obesity, more than 10 grand in debt.
Yeah, and couldn't hold a job for more than a year.
Exactly,
Yes.
just, really struggling. But then, fast forward a bit, the same Lisa Allen, now she's lean, vibrant, running marathons.
Debt-free, great career she's had for years.
Right. So what happened? What was the magic switch?
Well, that's the fascinating part. Researchers looked really closely, and it wasn't some, massive overnight personality transplant. It all kind of cascaded. Started from changing just one key habit.
Just one. Wow.
Yeah. And her story, it really highlights this basic truth. Our lives, the small stuff, the big choices, they're just so powerfully shaped by these habits we barely even notice.
That really hits home. It reminds me of William James, the psychologist. Way back in 1892, he said something like, all our life is but a mass of habits.
Exactly.
Makes you think how much of our day is just autopilot, which I guess is what we're digging into today.
Precisely. And we're drawing heavily from Charles Duhigg's fantastic book, The Power of Habit. Our mission here is to unpack the science, the why behind what we do.
And crucially, how we can maybe change some of those things if we want to.
That's it. We're hunting for those aha moments for you so you walk away not just knowing more, but maybe seeing your own routines, your own habits in a totally new way.
Okay, let's get into it. So the foundation, the core mechanic, Duhigg calls it the habit loop.
Right. It's this simple 3-step loop in your brain. Works for pretty much any habit, good, bad, whatever.
Step 1 is the cue.
Yeah.
It's the trigger, right? Tells your brain, go time for that habit.
Yep. Then step 2 is the routine. That's the action itself, the behavior. It could be physical, mental, emotional.
And finally, step 3, the reward, the payoff, the thing your brain likes that makes it say, hey, let's remember this loop for next time.
Exactly. Cue, routine, reward. Simple but powerful. And what's really wild is where this happens in the brain. MIT researchers back in the 90s, they pinpointed this ancient structure called the basal ganglia. Think of it like deep inside, kind of primitive. It's not handling complex thought. It's the brain's habit storage unit.
Okay, so it's like the brain's autopilot control center.
Pretty much. And they figured this out partly with rats and mazes. Classic stuff.
Right, the T-maze with the chocolate.
That's the one. So a click sounds, that's the cue. A gate opens, rat runs the maze, finds chocolate, the reward. Now, at first, the rat's brain is going nuts, right? Especially the basal ganglia. It's exploring, sniffing, figuring things out.
Working hard.
Totally. But as the rat learns the maze, runs it over and over, the brain activity changes. The basal ganglia, actually, quiets down during the run. It only spikes at the cue, the click, and then again at the reward, the chocolate. The routine itself, running the maze, becomes almost effortless, mentally speaking.
So the brain kind of outsources the routine to this habit center to save energy.
You got it. It's all about efficiency. Which brings us to this incredible case, Eugene Pauly.
Oh yeah, the amnesia patient.
Right. Viral encephalitis just destroyed the parts of his brain responsible for forming new conscious memories. He couldn't remember his doctor 5 minutes after meeting him, couldn't remember his own age.
Terrible, but his basal ganglia
Was perfectly intact. And researchers found he could still form new habits. He learned his way around the block for his daily walk, even though he couldn't draw you a map of the road or remember ever walking it before.
No way.
Yeah. He learned where his wife kept nuts in the kitchen. He could find the bathroom, all habit, no conscious memory of learning it. His wife would ask, how did you find the nuts? And he'd just shrug.
That's mind-blowing. It's like it proves habits operate on a completely different track in the brain, totally separate from conscious memory.
Exactly. It's like when you drive home from work, right? And you suddenly realize you're pulling into the driveway, but you barely remember the drive itself.
Totally happens. Or just like getting dressed triggers, making coffee without even thinking about it.
All habit loops running silently in the background, powered by the basal ganglia. And you see how crucial it is when it gets damaged. People can become almost paralyzed mentally, can't make basic decisions because they can't filter out the noise. The habit machinery is broken.
Okay, so the loop is the structure. But what makes it stick? What makes us do the routine? That's the craving part, right?
Precisely. The loop needs fuel. And that fuel is craving. We got to talk about Claude Hopkins, advertising legend, early 1900s.
That Pepsodent guy.
The Pepsodent guy. Back then, brushing teeth, not really a thing for most Americans. Hopkins needed to create a habit. His rules were find a simple cue, define the reward. So the cue he found was brilliant. Tooth film. Everyone has. He ran ads saying, run your tongue across your teeth, you'll feel a film. That's what makes teeth look dull, invites decay. Simple, universal cue.
And the reward was obviously beautiful teeth, a great smile.
That was the stated reward, yes, and it helped. But the real genius move, the thing that truly created the craving, was something else. Hopkins insisted Pexidin add mint oils and citric acid.
Why? For flavor.
Not just flavor, those ingredients create a cool, tingling sensation in your mouth. It doesn't actually mean your teeth are cleaner. Dentists back then knew toothpaste didn't do much beyond the scrubbing action itself. But people started to associate that tingle with cleanliness. They started to crave that feeling. If they didn't feel the tingle after brushing, their mouth didn't feel clean. That craving for this sensation is what cemented the daily brushing habit for millions.
Wow. So the craving wasn't even for the actual benefit, but for a sensory signal linked to the benefit.
Exactly. And we saw this again years later with Febreze.
Oh, yeah, the air freshener that originally bombed.
Totally bombed. They marketed it as this miracle odor eliminator. Problem was, people living in smelly houses, lots of cats, smokers, they often become nose blind. They don't notice the bad smells. So the cue bad smell wasn't working for the target audience.
So no cue, no habit loop activation.
Right. P&G researchers went into people's homes, watched them clean, and they saw this pattern. Women would finish cleaning a room, making the bed, vacuuming, and then, as a final little ritual, they'd spray something to make it smell nice.
Ah, so the cleaning itself was the cue.
Kind of. The completion of cleaning was the cue. And the reward wasn't eliminating a bad smell they didn't notice. It was adding a pleasant smell as a sort of finishing touch, a mini celebration of being done.
So they repositioned Febreze.
Completely. Added more perfume, changed the ads to show people spraying it on freshly cleaned fabrics, associate it with that satisfying, I'm finished feeling. Sales exploded. It became a reward people craved after cleaning.
It's amazing how much is driven by that anticipation, that desire for the reward.
Yeah.
Like Julio the monkey?
Oh, Julio. Yeah, the neuroscience backs this up. They trained Julio to pull a lever when shapes appeared on screen to get a drop of blackberry juice.
The reward.
Right. At first, his brain's pleasure centers lit up when he got the juice. But as the habit formed, something shifted. His brain started showing that pleasure spike when the shapes appear before the juice arrived.
He was anticipating the reward, craving it.
Exactly. The cue itself triggered the neurological pattern of pleasure. And then, when they didn't give him the juice sometimes, his brain showed this huge spike of, craving and frustration. That anticipation, that wanting the reward, that's what drives the loop.
Which explains why exercise can be hard to stick with. The reward endorphins, feeling good, might come later. You need to build the craving for that feeling before you even start.
You got it. The brain has to learn to anticipate and desire that reward for the habit to become automatic. Without the craving, the loop is weak.
Okay, so we get how habits form, how craving powers them. What about breaking bad ones or changing habits we don't like? This leads to the golden rule, right?
The golden rule of habit change. It's deceptively simple. You can't really eliminate a bad habit, but you can replace it.
How?
Keep the same cue, keep the same reward, but insert a new routine. You're basically hijacking the existing loop.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about Coach Tony Dungy and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Awful team, always choking under pressure. Dungy didn't try to teach them hundreds of complex new plays. No. He focused on drilling a few key formations and reactions over and over. He wanted players to stop thinking and just react based on cues they saw on the field. Same cues like the way a lineman sets up. Same reward, winning the play, feeling successful. But a new, automatic, disciplined routine instead of the old, panicked, error-filled one.
So he rebuilt their habits on the field.
Exactly. He made execution automatic, and it worked. They started winning, made the playoffs, eventually won a Super Bowl using that core philosophy. He changed the routine.
It makes sense. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous too, isn't it?
A great example. AA doesn't necessarily cure the underlying reasons someone drinks, but it gives them a new routine to handle the cues and cravings.
So the cue might be stress or seeing friends drink.
Right. And the reward they're seeking is often companionship, distraction, relief from anxiety.
Okay.
AA replaces the routine of drinking with attending meetings, talking to a sponsor, working the steps. It provides similar rewards community, shared experience, coping mechanisms, but through a completely different, healthier routine.
But just swapping the routine, is that always enough? especially under stress.
Ah, good point. That's where the second crucial piece comes in, belief. For habit change to stick, especially long term, you have to believe it's possible.
How does that work?
The AA really emphasizes this. Belief often comes from the group experience, seeing others succeed, or sometimes belief in a higher power, something bigger than yourself that makes change feel achievable. Without that belief, when times get tough, stress hits. People often revert to the old habit. Belief is the anchor for the new routine.
Right, like Mandy, the nail biter in the book.
Perfect example. Habit reversal therapy. First, identify the cue for her. It was a slight tension in her fingertips. The routine was biting, the reward she craved. Physical stimulation, a release of that tension.
Yeah.
The therapist taught her a competing routine. When she felt the cue, she had to immediately put her hands in her pockets or clench her fists or grab a pencil, anything to provide a different physical stimulus. Same cue, different routines, similar type of reward, physical sensation. But crucially, she had to believe she could stop biting for it to work long term. Awareness plus a plan plus belief.
Okay, so it's cue, new W routine, reward, plus belief. That's powerful. Now, what about keystone habits? These sound important.
Oh, they're huge. Keystone habits are, well, there's like the anchor tenants in a mall. They draw other businesses in. They're habits that, once you change or adopt them, trigger a cascade of other positive changes, often unintentionally.
So you don't have to fix everything at once.
Exactly. Focus on one or two key areas, and they create ripples.
Yeah.
The classic example is Paul O'Neill Alcoa, the aluminum company.
We're the safety guy.
Yeah. When he became CEO, everyone expected him to talk profits, restructuring. Instead, his first speech, all about worker safety. His goal, 0 injuries. Wall Street thought he was nuts.
It seemed totally counterintuitive for a giant industrial company. How did focusing on safety actually help the bottom line?
It was genius. O'Neill knew that to achieve 0 injuries, Alcoa had to understand why injuries happened. That meant understanding every step of the manufacturing process, identifying breakdowns, fixing inefficiencies. To make the plant safer, they had to make it better, more streamlined, higher quality.
Ah, I see. So the cue was an injury report.
Right. The routine became analyzing the cause and implementing systemic changes to prevent recurrence. The reward was fewer injuries, yes, but also huge cost savings, better quality, improved communication, even better union relations. Safety became the keystone that unlocked operational excellence across the board. Alcoa became massively profitable under him.
That's incredible. One focus creating such wide-ranging effects, and this applies personally too.
Absolutely. Think about exercise. Studies show that when people start exercising regularly, even just once a week, they often start eating better, smoking less, being more productive at work, without consciously planning to change those other things. Exercise is a classic keystone habit.
Or like keeping a food journal, just the act of writing it down.
Makes people more aware and often leads to healthier choices, even if they weren't told to change their diet. These are small wins. They build momentum, create a sense of efficacy, and make other changes feel more possible.
Like Michael Phelps and his mental rehearsals.
Exactly. His coach, Bob Bowman, ingrained this routine. Put in the videotape. Phelps would mentally visualize entire races perfectly, stroke by stroke, turn by turn.
But not just perfect races, right?
Crucially, no. Bowman made him visualize things going wrong too. Goggles filling with water, suit ripping, feeling tired, and visualize himself overcoming those problems and still winning.
So that mental routine became a keystone habit.
Totally. It built incredible focus and resilience. When his goggles actually filled with water in the Beijing Olympics, he didn't panic. He'd already lived that scenario countless times in his head. He just executed the plan he'd rehearsed mentally.
Right.
That keystone habit gave him a massive edge.
Okay, moving on. Willpower. We talk about it like it's this fixed trait, but the book frames it differently, almost like another habit.
Yeah, or at least something that can be trained, like one. Look at Starbucks. They spend millions training their partners, their employees, specifically on willpower and self-discipline.
Why? Just for better customer service?
Largely, yes. Think about dealing with a rude, demanding customer at 6 a.m. when you're tired and stressed. It takes serious willpower to maintain that cheerful, helpful Starbucks persona, right?
Definitely.
Starbucks realized they needed to make handling those moments almost automatic. They used training routines, role-playing, specific plans like the lauding method. Listen, acknowledge, take action, thank, explain to help employees manage stressful interactions without depleting their willpower reserves. They're trying to make self-control a routine.
Interesting. It ties into that experiment.
Mm-hmm.
The cookies and the radishes.
Right, Roy Baumeister's work, building on Mervin's. You bring hungry students into a lab smelling of fresh cookies. One group gets to eat the cookies. The other group has to ignore the cookies and eat radishes.
Tough assignment.
You bet. Afterwards, both groups are given a difficult puzzle to solve. The radish group. They give up way faster. Resisting the cookies had drained their willpower.
So willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired if you overuse it.
That's the analogy, yeah. It's a finite resource that gets depleted. But, and this is the key part, like a muscle, it can also be strengthened with practice.
How?
Studies showed that people who deliberately practice self-control in one area, sticking to an exercise plan, managing their money better, following a study schedule, their willpower seemed to increase overall. That strength spilled over into other unrelated areas of their lives. They had more self-control generally.
So you can train your willpower muscle.
Seems like it. And another crucial factor they found, agency, giving people a sense of control.
How does that help willpower?
Well, think about those Starbucks baristas again. Part of the training isn't just the latte method, it's empowering them, giving them the autonomy to handle situations, maybe offer a free drink voucher, make decisions. When people feel like they have control, like they're not just cogs in a machine, their self-discipline actually increases. Feeling empowered fuels willpower.
That makes sense. But what about when the habits aren't helpful? When they're dysfunctional, especially within organizations? The Rhode Island hospital case is chilling.
It really is. Top-tier hospital, cutting-edge medicine, but plagued by these ingrained dysfunctional routines. Terrible communication between departments, rigid hierarchies, nurses afraid to speak up.
And it led to actual harm, right? Operating on the wrong side of the brain.
Multiple times, tragically. In one case, the surgeon just glanced at the scan. The consent form wasn't specific. A nurse had a doubt, but the culture discouraged questioning. A cascade of small failures rooted in bad institutional habits. No single person was solely to blame. It was the system's routines that failed.
How does an institution even begin to fix something that ingrained?
Often, it takes a crisis, a public failure, intense scrutiny, that can sometimes provide the jolt needed to overcome the inertia. Like the King's Cross fire in London back in '87.
What happened there?
A small fire started under a wooden escalator. But because of rigid departmental silos, the station staff weren't really responsible for fires, the transport police weren't, the fire brigade had their own protocols. Nobody took decisive action early on. Each group stuck to their own narrow routines. Communication failed, the fire erupted, killing 31 people.
Because everyone was just following their own ingrained procedures.
Exactly. It relates to this idea of organizational truces. Routines in companies often evolve to keep the peace between different departments or rival managers. They allow work to get done despite friction.
Like an unspoken agreement not to step on each other's toes.
Right. But those truces can also create dangerous blind spots and prevent necessary action, like at King's Cross. Nobody felt empowered or responsible for dealing with the fire until it was too late because it crossed those invisible lines established by routine. It often takes a disaster to force organizations to re-examine and break those dysfunctional truces.
Wow. Okay, so habits shape us, organizations.
Yeah.
But they're also used on us, right? Like Target predicting pregnancies.
Oh, yeah, that's a wild one. Target hired this statistician, Andrew Pohl, to figure out how to identify pregnant shoppers early on, ideally in the second trimester. That's when people establish brand loyalties for baby stuff.
How on earth did they do that?
They're data mining, basically. They track everything you buy using your guest ID number or credit card. Pohl and his team analyzed mounds of data and found correlations. They identified about 25 products, lotions, supplements like magnesium and zinc, cotton balls.
Unscented lotions, right?
Right. Pregnant women often become sensitive to smells. Buying combinations of these items allowed Target to assign a pregnancy prediction score and even estimate a due date with scary accuracy.
That feels intrusive. Didn't they get backlash? I remember that story about the dad finding out his teenage daughter was pregnant from Target coupons.
Exactly. That was the risk. Being too obviously accurate freaks people out. Retailers have always used subtle tricks, of course, putting milk at the back of the store, produce at the front.
Wait, why produce at the front? Isn't it easily damaged?
It is. But studies show if you buy healthy stuff first, you feel virtuous, which makes you more likely to splurge on junk food later in the trip. It's all about manipulating shopping habits, which drive a huge amount of our purchases, often unconsciously.
So Target needed a way to use their prediction without being creepy.
Precisely. Paul's solution was genius. Camouflage. Instead of just sending ads for diapers and cribs, they'd mix them in with totally random stuff like coupons for baby clothes next to coupons for lawnmowers or wine glasses.
Ah, so the pregnancy stuff didn't stand out. It just looked like a regular flyer.
Exactly. It made the targeted ads feel random and familiar, not like Big Brother was watching your womb. It made the new information, Target knows you're pregnant, feel like old news, just another flyer.
It's like that trick with new music on the radio.
Totally. Like Outkast's Hey Ya. Initially, it tanked in tests. Too different, too weird. Radio programmers made it a hit by sandwiching it between super popular familiar songs. They wrapped the new thing in an old, comfortable package.
Making the unfamiliar feel familiar.
You got it. Same thing happened in World War II. The government needed people to eat organ meats, liver, kidneys, heart, because regular meat was going to the troops. But Americans were grossed out by organ meats.
So how'd they sell it?
They didn't market it as eat healthy kidneys. They promoted recipes that disguised the organ meats in familiar dishes. Meatloaf, sausages, pâtés. Wrap the new, slightly weird food in an old, familiar habit. It worked. Contrast that with later campaigns like 5 a day for fruits and veggies, just telling people what to do without linking it to existing habits or familiar routines. Mostly failed.
Fascinating. Habits aren't just personal or corporate. They're societal, too. Like the Montgomery bus boycott. How did that gain so much traction?
Well, Rosa Parks' arrest was the spark, obviously. But why her arrest, specifically? Because she wasn't just some random person. She was deeply respected and connected across multiple social networks.
Like her church, the NAACP.
Right. These are called strong ties. News of her arrest and the call for a boycott spread rapidly through these close-knit groups of friends and fellow activists. That initial mobilization came from strong ties.
But that wouldn't be enough for a citywide boycott, would it?
No. That's where weak ties come in. This is based on sociologist Mark Granovetter's work. Weak ties are your acquaintances, friends of friends, people you don't know well, but who are part of your broader social fabric.
How do they help a movement?
Peer pressure, essentially. When people saw their neighbors, colleagues, people they recognized from church or the street participating, even if they didn't know Rosa Parks personally, they felt social pressure to join in. Weak ties spread participation beyond the initial core group.
So strong ties start it, weak ties spread it. What makes it last?
That requires a third element. The movement needs to give people new habits that create a sense of identity and agency. Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy of nonviolence did exactly this.
How so?
It wasn't just passive resistance, it was an active routine. When faced with violence or arrest, participants had a new habit. Respond with peace, show up voluntarily for arrest, support each other. This transformed them from passive followers into active agents of the movement. They were embodying the change, directing themselves. It created this powerful, self-propelling unity.
They own the new habits.
Exactly. It's similar to how Rick Warren built Saddleback Church. He focused on instilling habits of faith, daily prayer, small group participation routines that allowed the community to grow and sustain itself without constant top-down direction. Empowering people with habits creates resilience.
Okay, this has all been fascinating, but it leads to a really big question. If so much of our life is run by habit, what about free will? Are we responsible for our actions if they're driven by habit?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The book explores this through two really stark legal cases. First, Brian Thomas, a Welshman who, while experiencing a sleep terror like sleepwalking but more extreme, strangled his wife, genuinely believing she was an intruder attacking him in their camper van.
Horrifying, and he was found.
Not guilty. The court accepted he was acting unconsciously, effectively like an automaton. His brain wasn't functioning in a waking, conscious state, no free will involved.
Okay, now contrast that with Angie Bachman.
Right. Angie developed a massive gambling addiction, burned through an inheritance, lost her house. She sued the casino company, arguing they exploited her habit.
And the outcome there?
She lost. The court held her responsible. Neurologically, her brain probably did react like other addicts. The near misses on slot machines likely triggered pleasure responses, reinforcing the habit loop intensely. But the crucial difference was awareness.
She knew she had a problem.
Yes, she was aware of her gambling habit. She'd signed forms acknowledging the risks. She knew what she was doing, even if the urge felt overwhelming. Unlike Brian Thomas, she wasn't unconscious. She made choices, even if they were choices driven by a powerful habit.
So the line seems to be awareness. Once you know a habit exists, You have some responsibility.
That really seems to be the core message Duhigg lands on. Habits aren't destiny. They exert enormous influence, yes. But once you become aware of a habit loop, once you can see the cue, the routine, the reward, you gain the capacity and arguably the responsibility to start changing it. Others have done it, even with incredibly powerful addictions or ingrained behaviors.
It comes back to William James again, doesn't it? His personal struggle.
Yeah, it's a powerful closing story. James was brilliant, but felt like a failure, paralyzed by indecision, questioning if free will even existed. He made a decision. For 1 year, he would simply choose to believe in free will, choose to believe he was responsible for his actions, and could change, even if he couldn't prove it scientifically.
He decided to act as if he had free will.
Exactly. He wrote, "My first act of free will shall be to believe in free will." And that act of belief, that deliberate choice, became the keystone for him, reshaping his entire life and career. It started with the will to believe change was possible.
So wrapping this all up for our listeners,
Mhm.
what's the big takeaway?
I think it's that, yes, habits run so much of our lives, more than we probably realize, but they're not set in stone. They can be changed. It might take effort, it might take awareness, it might take belief, but it's possible.
It's not necessarily easy or fast, but it's doable.
Right. And the book gives that practical 4-step framework for anyone wanting to tackle a habit.
Okay, let's quickly recap those. Step 1.
Identify the routine. What's the specific behavior you want to change? Be precise.
Step 2.
Experiment with rewards. What are you really craving? Is it boredom relief, energy, relaxation? Try different payoffs after the routine to see what actually satisfies the underlying urge.
Step 3.
Isolate the cue. This takes detective work. When the urge hits, write down, where are you? What time is it? What's your emotional state? Who else is around? What action just happened? Look for patterns.
And finally, step 4.
Have a plan. Once you've diagnosed the loop cue, routine, reward, craving, create a specific plan. When cue happens, I will do new routine instead to get reward. Write it down. Rehearse it mentally.
Simple steps, but powerful if you apply them.
Definitely. It puts the power back in your hands.
Which leads us to a final thought to leave you with from the writer David Foster Wallace. He observed, "The way we habitually think of our surroundings and ourselves create the worlds that each of us inhabit."
Powerful. Our habits aren't just actions. They shape our perception, our reality.
So the question for you is, how might understanding your habits, the cravings, the willpower, the power of belief help you reshape the world you inhabit? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.